Hello, fuckettes. Fuckers and fuckette.
Welcome.
No, I can't do this.
What do you mean you can't do this?
I don't even know that I can look at it, can I?
Welcome to the support group for A Little Life, aka the Trauma Bible.
Pretty much. Jude, you need to show a little life.
So you throw him on the floor.
Leave him alone. So Cameron, thoughts?
Thoughts, prayers,
Sorrows, prayers?
now.
Oh.
What would possess someone to write something so traumatic?
I mean, I would. If I could write. Just write my whole life story. That'd be enough. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. What's stopping you?
I can't write.
Get a ghostwriter.
You can be my ghostwriter.
So, who was your favourite character? Let's
Jude.
start light. What was the most graphic trauma scene that hurt you the most?
That hurt me the most? Fuck me. I don't know, because like all of them hurt. But I can think of like maybe 3 specific ones. When Caleb threw him down the stairs.
That was my... yeah.
When Brother Luke told him he had to like be more involved with getting the clients. That made me feel sad. And then when it was not really necessarily a scene, but the whole section of the book after Willem died where they were making him be alive still, and you could just tell he didn't want to, and like he was suffering. That was like really traumatic for me. The bit where Dr. Trailer like ran him over didn't really traumatise me. I will say I was kind of like, not disappointed, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? Underwhelmed.
That you got run over.
Oh no, it's more like you get this whole build up about Dr. Trailer throughout the book. And I thought, it's got to be worse than Brother Luke, it's got to be worse than all that other stuff. And it just kind of isn't. But maybe it's because at that point you're so desensitised to everything that's happened that you're like, oh, it's just another thing. That was pretty dark though.
One
Anyway.
thing after the other.
What about you? What was your...
When he got thrown on the stairs,
Yeah.
locked outside.
Oh, that one's definitely like top, because it was just so unnecessary. I don't get why Caleb hated disabled people so much just because his parents like were dying from illness. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's giving like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho of being like, you're not even helping yourself. He's disabled! What do you want him to do?
This poor man.
This poor man. Anyway, when Caleb died, I rejoiced.
The best part of the book.
The best
when he
part
died.
of the book, when he died.
We start so chaotically, I don't know where we're going.
No. Firstly, I think I will say also, I don't get why the reviews are so bad for this book.
Because it's torture porn. Torture porn.
Torture porn. Like, I get it, but you can tell the people that review it badly have never been through a type of trauma. Because they're like, this is so unnecessary. This much trauma really wouldn't happen to someone. Do they even live in this planet? Do they even live in this real world? There's literally like child slavery and children getting like sold off for sex. I get so angry when I see the bad reviews where they're like, DNF'd it because it was just trauma after trauma. That's not realistic. Honey, how good for you that you haven't experienced something bad like that in your life. A lot of people say like they don't like it because it doesn't have a happy ending and because it doesn't show him getting better. But that's the thing, is that people don't always get better. The whole point of the book is to show sometimes bad things happen to people over and over again, and sometimes they just don't recover from it and there is no coming back from it. And sometimes people don't want to come back from it either.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on it. It's beautifully written. Like, the way it is written, I don't think any other author could write this book. Because her wording and her language and the way she, like, formats it is just perfect for that book. The POV is perfect. You couldn't write it in first person. It wouldn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Oh, it's just so good. I don't think I'll ever reread it because I don't think I could put myself through it again.
But they're imprinted in your brain.
Yeah.
You're not gonna forget it.
Once you've read this book, it does not leave you. Like, I can remember pretty much all of it. And I can remember the characters very vividly. Didn't like JB. I'm sorry. I just didn't like him. He annoyed me the whole way through. He was a rich boy with rich boy privilege, and he sounded like a whiny bitch. Like, the whole JB narrative of, like, the drug addiction thing, I just couldn't feel sorry for him. Because bro had, like, his life set for him. He was rich. He had everything he wanted. Everything was paid for him. He spent his days doing art. And then what he did to Jude upset me so much that he was just not redeemable after that. And the fact that he had the audacity to be mad at Jude for not forgiving him. I wouldn't forgive you either, you asshole. I was so angry. Like, that whole storyline, the whole JB storyline just made me feral and pissed off. Like, JB could just not be in this book and I wouldn't care. The only bit of, like, goodness he has is when he paints that picture of Willem, but then he ruins it by kissing him. That made me so angry.
That happened.
I was so angry. Like, it was going so well. I was feeling really emotional because I was like, oh, he painted this picture of Willem for Jude because he's like, I'm going to give it to you after the installment. And I was like, oh my god, that's so sweet. And then he fucking kisses him. And I'm like, why? It was so unnecessary. It came out of nowhere. And it's not like JB didn't like Jude like that. He liked Willem. So it was so stupid and unnecessary. He could have just hugged him and been his friend and been like, I'm here for you. But instead he ruined it. And then fucking, I don't blame Jude for running away the way he did, because same. Don't touch me, don't come near me, never speak to me again.
Okay, what was your favourite part of the book?
When they were together, Jude and Willem being together. That was the only good bit of the book really though, wasn't it? The happy years. The fuck she mean by the happy years?
He got to teach Felix, that was kind of happy.
Oh yeah, no, I like that too. That was cute. The thing about this book is that it's not arranged into traditional chapters. You have 7 parts of the book, and each part has 3 chapters in it, or like 3 parts to it. And all of the chapters are named rather than numbered. Which is actually like more common than I thought it was, because I've now seen like a list of books that have named chapters. Where's the contents? I went past it. So this book, why have I folded it around like that? I'm an awful person. This book is divided into 7 parts. You have Lispinard Street, The Postman, Vanities, The Axiom of Equality, which is arguably the most depressing fucking part of this book, and Dear Comrades is really depressing too. So you have The Axiom of Equality, The Happy Years, Dear Comrade, and Lispinard Street again. That hurt, that last part. The last part of that book is like, I went into this book thinking I was going to cry the whole way through, that it was going to like destroy me the whole way through. But I was kind of like sad, but like numb a lot of the way through. It wasn't till we got to the very like last page of the book where I was like distraughtly sobbing. Because spoiler, Jude dies. And then Harold is depressed, and it makes me really sad. The way that Harold talks about him and how he misses him and how he like treats everything with kindness now because he sees him in everything. I was sitting there going like, but worse. But like, there's this bit at the end where like at the Lispinard Street chapter or whatever it is, he's talking about, or it might have been before in a different chapter where they go back to Lispinard Street and he's telling him about their life there. And then like at the very end of the book when Harold is remembering that moment where he's like, oh, I'm going to tell you the story And then he did, and then I cried. And then I cried for like 30 minutes. And I couldn't get over it, and I was sitting in my bed, and I just did not want to leave my bed. Yeah. I also expected the trauma to be in more detail than it was because of what people said about it. They were like, there was no need to go into that much graphic detail. But honestly, there wasn't that much detail in like the actual, like, his childhood trauma. There was more detail about like the self-harm stuff and the abuse he got from Caleb. But when it came to his like childhood stuff, there wasn't like the graphic detail that people said there was. They just kind of said, oh, this happened and then this happened. It wasn't like detailed. It was more like implied.
Yeah.
Where he'd be like, the clients would come, they would get into bed with me, they would do it and then leave. You don't get any like graphic details of like child rape or anything like that. It's just implied. But the way it's written, like, you can't, there's no like room for guessing because of the way of it's written. You can just, you know what's happening.
But why would you want to read that? I mean, granted, everything is traumatic.
Yeah.
That it makes sense as to why you wouldn't.
Yeah, it makes sense as to why the other stuff had more detail than that did. And also I think it works in a way that when you have childhood memories of that, the details do start to fade somewhat and you can't remember every little detail after a while. Especially like, he was in his like 40s, 50s when he finally discussed it with them, with Willem. So it makes sense as why it was described that way.
Yeah.
Brother Luke is child predator 101 pretty much. Like, that man made me so mad, Cameron. I was so fucking angry at this man. It's the fact that he was in the fucking monastery and he was like the only one that wasn't molesting him out of all the monks. And he's like, I'm gonna take you away and you'll be fine. Boom, gets molested by him. And then his name wasn't even Luke. Do you have any thoughts? I've kind of taken over a bit.
Well, I read it so long ago, so not really. And it's fresh in your brain.
It is really fresh in my brain. A lot of people complain about the detail that she goes into on a lot of the scenes, but it has to be that way to get the point across. Like, you're essentially living someone's life with them. You're watching them live their life. If she skipped out on the details, it wouldn't affect you as much. A lot of the self-harm scenes, like, they were like the most graphic part of the book. Whether that's because we're both desensitised, I don't know, but...
Or the suicide attempted.
The suicide attempts, that was like brutal.
Knees are out.
Yeah. The characters are written really well. I don't think I've read a book where the characters are written so well that the whole time I'm reading it, I can just see them.
Did you get attached?
Very. But only to Jude and Willem.
Yeah, they're like the two that you're supposed to get attached to the most.
Jude is technically the main character of the book. He's the protagonist.
Yeah.
Willem is like the next one. And then Harold, I would say, as well, are like the main characters. Malcolm and JB are more of like the side characters. I did like Malcolm, but because they didn't really talk much about him, there wasn't, like, when he died in the book, I didn't really care. Because I feel like if they'd have replaced the whole JB drug narrative and we learned more about Malcolm, I would have felt more when he died. The only reason I felt sad about him dying was for Jude, because it was his friend. And then he died with Willem as well at the same time in that car accident. When they went into the detail about what happened to Willem in that car accident, I was like, oh, nah. Like, that was graphic. That was a graphic description, for sure.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, all of them. They also, he goes into how, I like how it describes how much his childhood affected his sex drive. Like, with the way I used to be, you get the flip side of it, of the acting out sexually, but in this you get the other side, which is don't touch me, like he can't get an erection anymore, he doesn't even like to be hugged, like understandable because what he went through was brutal. But I like that it shows the other side of it and how you don't always come out of it okay. And you don't owe it to anyone to be okay either. You don't owe anyone your recovery. You don't owe anyone to get better. And then he didn't, and then he died. Any other thoughts? I do like the other cover of this book more than this cover, but I don't really like faces on covers. But I get why this cover was picked. I watched a video about it. It's supposed to be, from what I watched of the video about it, it's supposed to be him faking being in pleasure while he's in pain for Brother Luke's clients. Yeah, to go with the title. That's why she picked that cover. Because the title of that picture is called The Orgasmic Boy.
Okay.
Are you upset now?
Yes, so...
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you, but like, I have to know it, so you do now as well.
What am I going to do with that?
Be upset. You have to show a little life, Jude, and that's him showing a little life.
This book destroyed me all over again in 2 seconds.
Honestly, every single time I find something out new that I didn't know before about it, I get upset all over again, and I just kind of sit there with that information for a bit. Sorry.
So
a lot of people obviously say don't read this book, don't read this book. I think you should read the book, but read the trigger warnings first.
absolutely.
However, the trigger warnings are kind of a bit of a, well, this whole fucking video has been a spoiler, but the trigger warnings are a bit of a spoiler. If you're someone, if you know that you can handle that kind of thing, then you should be fine. But do read the trigger warnings first if you are someone that is easily upset or triggered, or you're not desensitized like we are. Because I didn't read the trigger warnings, I just went into it.
Same.
Because
I watched some people review it.
I'm mentally ill.
They were like, we cried. And I was like, okay, I'm about to
Sold.
cry. And I didn't, so...
I know, I'm so upset you didn't cry at this book. But like, you were sad. Like, it's kind of hard not to be.
So...
I miss Jude and Willem, I think about them all the time. The closer I got to the end of the book, I slowed down reading it because I didn't want it to be over, but at the same time I was so relieved when it was over. Final thoughts?
Emotionally scarred, mentally scarred, all the scarring this book could give you, I got it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think I will think about Jude every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
This book stays with you for real. He ain't deserve that, neither did Willem. My precious boys. And this is only the second gay book I've ever read, so...
At least you got a happy one first. So, anything else you want to say? Because
No.
I don't think there is.
There's not really much else to say. You have to read the book and experience it yourself, because you can't really put into words how the book affects you and makes you feel. Like, this is a book where you have to read it, don't Google any spoilers, don't Google it. You have to be in it and read it and like have the experience of it to get it.
Yeah. So that was our therapy.
Yep.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Okay, goodbye.